Good day. We meet again on a Saturday, and today's topic is Save Us from the Stone Age. So here we go. There are many rifts that cause. The idea is that unless we keep a distance, make a distance, make an alienation, we can't store thrones. Because you can't store thrones from a foot distance. So to get or only when we get distant from people whom we once knew, maybe deeply loved and respected, then we get into a fracas and start throwing stones. So for family rifts as well as racial rifts, political rifts, scientific rifts, whatever that causes the disagreement, and then we become disagreeable. So, saving ourselves from the Stone Age, sadly, stones have formed in the heart of a stone thrower. And if it involves a lot of grievous hurt and incidents between the two races or between the two communities or whatever, the two parties who have now become antagonists, they might have been protagonists to begin with, then more jagged, more grievous and hurtful the stones become. Stones go through evolution, though man does not. Evolution is this: as we use more stones, they become sharper and sharper. Stones beget stones. Then other areas of your heart begin to get stony, and you make new stones out of uh, other material. You start with one issue and you become very nasty on many other issues. Three, stones do boomerang, hurts you more than others. So for all this, we need to ask forgiveness. Stones of a quarry flock together just like birds of a feather. So point number five, you keep the distance when you want to make stones and throw at people. Where close at hand, you can't throw stones. So alienation comes, you begin to throw stones. Yes. Then you put on a mask, no smiles. So it's a bit of COVID behavior stone throwing needs. Yes, you put on a mask, self distance, and you put on a stony smile, stony face, not a smile, stony face. Then you quarantine others. You see, it's COVID behavior. With long enough a barge pole, in order to make a target, you keep people far away. So it's quite COVID behavior. The stony smile, which is no smile, I'm sorry, stony face, which is like a mask. Quarantine people with the long end of a barge pole. This is old English. Keep the distance, and then you begin the stone throwing. As I said earlier, more stones you throw, more jagged they become. Stones have a way of sharpening themselves on stones from that side to this side. So between races, communities, bonds, good friends, even family members, when spouses separate, it's so sad. And then sometimes between parents and progeny. Then point number 8, on repeated throwing, stones sharpen. I have said this before, yes. Point number 9, stones attract thorny cactus. That's a bit of a ecological thing in the stony areas, dry areas. That's where you get cactus. You remember those nice looking cactus, not to touch but to look. Yeah, sometimes people become like that. And in that pot you will see stones. You remember? Yeah. Point number 10, much oil will help stones turn to gems. So we want to give that redemptive possibility. As you know, I always like to work with the redemptive possibility. When peacemakers receive the stones, they don't return in kind. So there has to be a critical mass of peacemakers who are a remnant. But I'm saying the oil they carry is enough for a nation or a community or a group to at least soften up the jagged edges, and community becomes possible. Community becomes possible. This is the needed mission. Looking at the very cantankerous things people store up and how easily people take cudgels on anybody else's infamy, ill fame, people cash in. Right now, there's a big fracas about a noted personality because he seems having got involved in something, And immediately the cudgel makers, cudgel throwers, it's a national sport, something. I'm not saying other nations are better or worse than it, but our own nation has this amazing ability, really horrible ability to make stones about anything, about anyone, and immediately on the social media, the war begins with people who are not connected at all. So here is a litany of forgiveness for reprieve and reconciliation. Now, I did a canticle of thanksgiving. Please watch 156 in the English, 157 episode in the vernacular, and this is 158. The 156 and 157 were on canticles of thanksgiving. Saying a thank you is a redemptive key for anybody. You immediately not only you add value to others. When you say thank you work on the premise, I have received much. Thank you for school, thank you for parents, thank you for friends, thank you for the sport that nourished us, trained us, coached us, thank you for spouse, thank you for kids, thank you for friends. Isn't it? How many things we can. And thank you for Sri Lanka. Immediately we add value to ourselves also. A thankful person puts his brain forward in this is a fact, in oxytocin mediated, GABA mediated forward tracks. Because when you get bitter grudges and amygdala, you move into endorphins inside opium, and you get into the same sulky thing, and you're sulking the melancholic bulldog. That's how it goes. So keep thankfulness, you go forward. But today's topic is forgiveness and how to get saved from the Stone Age. That's what I call this, asking for forgiveness and how to save yourself from the Stone Age of throwing stones. One, I ask you forgiveness for vitriolic words when I attack the other side. So it's vitriolic words. Today I did a little post on when correcting your child, correct him with your voice, not with your tone, not with your gritted teeth, not with the facial grimaces. Just correct him with the voice, with the words that you want to carefully choose when you correct. So I ask for forgiveness for vitriolic words. So when I say I ask you for forgiveness, that it is always a direct thing, face-to-face thing. But I want to introduce you the fact that there is a great forgiver gets involved in the triangle. I ask you for forgiveness. I ask for forgiveness. That upward look and saying, forgive me, I ask you for forgiveness, has a covenant, a third party endorses. And then the one feels I should receive forgiveness because the person can say, no, I will not forgive you. I'll remember till I die that you did this to me. People can say like that. So there is a third party. So when you involve the third party, higher party, you're saying this matter was not only wrong in your sight, I did wrong to you, I did also wrong to the ultimate benefactor. I not only did wrong to you from whom I have received much, a child speaking to dad and mom, or a husband speaking to wife, or employee speaking to employer, or employer speaking to employee, which would be a great example, isn't it? Yes. So this is about I ask you forgiveness and I ask forgiveness. Point number two, I ask you for forgiveness for our deep divisions and uncaring attitudes and insensitivities to others' hurts. There is a real thing in this nation that we simply don't take time, effort to understand at least the other person's sensitivity and the hurt. You don't have to understand his ideology. You don't have to agree with his cause. Violently disagree with his cause if you want to, or at least peaceably disagree with his cause. But you can have empathy. A new word is dyspathy. Particularly, we have a generation who's so much on the digital screen. It creates dyspathy. How does empathy come? You do something you initiate, navigate, successful conclusion. You say, well done to yourself. That's prefrontal cortex activity. That's where empathy comes from. You kept your salience, you work to the focus, and you look back and say, oh, that was good. That is satiety, satiation. You like what you did. So you like yourself. That's where empathy comes from. And that liking of yourself, empathic, intuitive inside, becomes empathic, relational on the outside. These are two tracks. You have to develop, we have to get kids to develop from their mother's womb. Empathic, intuitive on the inside, empathic, relational on the outside. So if you find a young boy is not very empathic, don't go on at him trying to tell the right thing, show him the right thing. This generation learns by looking, not listening. They learn by looking because they are so much onto the digital screen. This generation learns by looking, not by listening. So we have to know that we have to do things with them to develop empathy. So we have to go empathic, intuitive inside, empathic. Then they learn to be empathic, relational. So I ask you for forgiveness for our deep divisions and uncaring attitudes and insensitivities to other hurts. I find just the same mistake the majority race made with the Tamil people. They are making again with another people. So we at least, you see, my purpose is to gather up a critical mass of momentum of a remnant people who are saying thank you all the time. At least thank you most of the time. Let's say 75% of thank you can overcome the 25% of disgruntlement we may feel about something. And the same people who are the thank you group will also become the forgiveness group. You can forgive anyway, whether the other person hears or not, whether the other person wants to receive or not. And then not only asking forgiveness, just releasing forgiveness while people are behaving wrong. This is what God does. While we are wrong, He's forgiving. This is what a father does. While the son is into reckless behavior, he's anyway drawing up the parameters to reduce the damage, to damage control. That's what a father does. He will immediately move and get into position to stop the damage control. So with God upstairs, He's all the time behaving towards us forgivingly for get it right for us. This is righteousness. Get it right for us. Righteousness is not pontificating and saying you're wrong and I'm right. Righteousness is not even this is right. Righteousness is getting it right for other people. This is the principle of the cross. I didn't mean to get into this so fast. I want to keep it to the last. But then righteousness is getting it right for the other person. If you think of it like that, world will become a better place. Whereas when we think rectitude, righteousness, put that fellow right. So all our campaigns on social media, that fellow was wrong, that fellow was wrong. So we highlight the wrong. Give a solution. Give redemption. Speak redemption. Speak rectification. Speak solution. Then kids get it. Speak the solution to them. Darling, let's do it like this. No point saying that was wrong. He already knows that. Moment you say that was wrong, he will say, no, I'm right. This digital generation is like that. Yesterday I sat with a couple, father and mother, so distressed because their 14-year-old is all the time on digital screen, not eating. So that's highest degree. So recovery is have to get his meals right. Disturb his, not disturb. I said, Mom, sit by the screen while the fellow is on it and feed him fruit, crunchy fruit. Crunchy fruit stops the dopamine and gets the serotonin going. Crunchy vegetables, same thing. So that's, by the way, about getting it right rather than insisting it is right. Right? Get it right for them. Train them right for it. It takes time. So while he's doing the error, kid or whoever it is, no point saying that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Don't get into a confrontation and fisticuffs. Get it right for him with a nice meal to begin with. Yes, things they like, but getting off the addictive stuff. Point number 3, I ask you for forgiveness for failing as a benefactor in my chosen field and my professional skill. Failing as a benefactor in my chosen field and in my professional skill made money for myself at the cost of the beneficiary. You know, it happens in the medical profession, legal profession, political profession, corporate, everywhere. So no point scolding politicians only. They didn't corrupt the country by themselves. Agreed? Yeah, agreed. Yeah. They needed other hands to corrupt, and those hands that the help they got to corrupt others came from well qualified professionals from good background, good schools, good family ties. Got it? Yeah. They didn't corrupt the nation by themselves. This is the sad thing. So I ask you for forgiveness for failing as a benefactor. So this I ask you for forgiveness. Whom we ask? People we fail, and the standard we fail. Yeah. So bringing in God, the greatest benefactor, highest benefactor, is very helpful for a reconciliation process. So transitional justice between races is also this: giving the perpetrator the chance to say, I'm sorry. And the victim says, I forgive you. In the racial thing, if we can arrange this at personal level, family level, friends level, old boys association level, that can be helpful, isn't it? Critical mass, critical momentum from small places. It's not the macro thing that first starts, the micro thing. Critical momentum in the small places in the right direction. Imagine the small pockets in the right direction can thwart the wrong momentum in the opposite direction. To begin with, the strong fellow looks the Gulliver, and we may look Lilliputians, but we know we are not working with only by ourselves. There's a great benefactor who's helping us in the right direction. We have to have the good shepherd on our side and know him that we will know he can catch up for us. Even in our personal failures, he can catch up for us. So, point number 4. I ask you for forgiveness for instances when I practiced survival of the fittest and struggle for existence in the corporate. It's not only in politics, in the professions, yes. So we say, I ask you for forgiveness. 6, I did this before. When we have a small fellow before us, we growl. So even a Suzuki car will growl at the bicycle. But then comes a huge Montero that growls at the Suzuki car. So when we are the greater power, we become bears that growl. Then others have to mourn like doves. But our turn comes at the face of a bear. He growls and we mourn. So this cycle goes on. So I'm saying this cycle was broken on a hill called Mount Calvary when the most powerful person took upon himself all the growls, the striking, the whiplashes, the put downs and the insults, and showed us a way. Yeah. Point number 6. I ask you for forgiveness for slander I originated or I circulated, as I chose to grind the axe and not bury the hatchet, mixing two metaphors. Also, slander may be done by using truth. That slander is still slander. Slander may be done by using falsehood. So when it comes to slandering, that means going on the public without face to face, with no chance for that person to defend himself. That's what slander is here. Point number 7. I ask you for forgiveness for choices, mindsets, partialities, prejudices, and comments based on racism, sexism, casteism, regionalism, nepotism, and religion. That's a long list. I think these are important ones, so I'll repeat. I ask you for forgiveness. So when I say you, I told you the third party or the second party that was involved in it, and the third party, the legal contractor, the legal covenanter, who undersigns different covenants. He undersigns marriage. He undersigns paternity, maternity, contractual obligations. He undersigns the workers' rights. and he understands the master's responsibilities. Of course, there are workers' responsibilities also. So to have a third signatory is a very helpful thing to acknowledge, own, even in international pacts, peace, reconciliation moves, there's a third signatory. And all the time we have a third signatory, the invisible guest and every meal time, as old homes used to have. Yes, chief guest at every meal. Yeah, he's there to do the undersigning. I ask you for forgiveness for choices, mindsets, partialities, prejudices, and comments based on racism, sexism, casteism, regionalism, maybe even classism, according to our class, school class, social class, what we dress and whom we hobnob with is also a class, nepotism and religion. So we ask for point number 8. I ask you for forgiveness for not identifying with the agony of the other race, which is the crying problem of Sri Lanka. Not identifying with the agony of the other race. We are not saying they did right, but the agony. When they suffered and were still being proactive in harassment of the other race and being silent about the evil perpetrations of my race. So always Tamils will say how wrong the Sinhalese were. Sinhalese will say how wrong the Tamils were. So there have to be middle people, mediators, arbitrators, negotiators, peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Peacemakers, they occupy the gap. A very hazardous profession because they get shot from both sides. Gap occupiers, so some got shot, isn't it, in the ethnic times, yeah. Because they occupied the gap, the middle line, and said, look, let's get back here. But then extremists of either side will not like the middleman here. But then that's a call. That's a call. Point number 8. This I'll repeat it. I ask you for forgiveness for not identifying in the agony of the other race when they suffered and were still being proactive in harassment of the other race and being silent about the evil perpetrations of my race. So I particularly took my race. You can put there my class or whatever. So if you need this whole list, it's available on my timeline. But also, if you send me a WhatsApp number to +94 77 49 59 214 saying litany of forgiveness, please we'll send you the whole document. Point number 9. I ask you for forgiveness for my part in economic, social, sexual, pecuniary exploitation of the vulnerable, and for my part in widening the rich poor gap. That flows from the first one, but this is into the practice. Point number 9, I'll repeat. I ask you for forgiveness. Always the person, second party, and the higher third party. I ask you for forgiveness for any part in economic, social, sexual, pecuniary exploitation of the vulnerable, and for my part in widening the rich poor gap. Point number 10. I ask you for forgiveness for bad mouthing my nation, forsaking her in an hour of need, and for thinking race above nationhood, which is very relevant for Sri Lanka, maybe for other nations. I ask for forgiveness for bad mouthing my nation. So my canticle of thanksgiving ended up saying, let Sri Lanka be the best nation ever, nation like no other in the true sense of the word. We use it often derogatorily and sarcastically. Nation like no other, land like no other. But we really want it to be a land like no other, where we are so endowed with so many good things out of the goodness of God. We are so endowed, yes. I ask you for forgiveness. I ask you for forgiveness for not being a father figure, role model in my field, beginning within my family, in my field, for my part for making people destitute morally, financially, or socially. I ask forgiveness for not being a father figure, role model in my field, beginning with family, of course, and for my part for making people destitute morally, financially, socially. Point number 12. I ask for forgiveness for abdicating Sri Lanka for greener pastures. That's a tough one, eh? Yeah, that's a tough one. But I put it there intentionally. This is a time to encourage all our generations, stay put. Which country do you think is better? All countries are in trouble. And our students who are going through graduation processes in other countries already find that getting a student visa is not similar to getting PR. They're stuck. And those countries are thinking of maximizing post-COVID resources for their own countrymen. So this is a time, put your roots in here and keep going. Yesterday, I did an allegory of a chap called Joseph. Joseph was the 11th in the family. His father was Jacob. And he, for whatever reason, somehow in life journey, he learned this. Anyone sends you an arrow, turn it into a fruitful branch. So the story goes like this. Joseph's name means Yasef, God will add. He believed this. Whoever puts him down, God will add. So these old names, my name is Lalith. That means charming. I try to be that. All these old names, I see some of you on the screen. They have name. They have meanings. In the vernacular also, they have meaning. So in the Hebrew language also, names had meaning. Yasef means God adds. So that got into his genome. He felt he can add. And so his brothers sold him into slavery out of jealousy. But he got into the position as the second in command, vice regent for Pharaoh at a very critical time in world's history, when famine came and ultimately all his 10 older brothers had to go for him because he believed God will add. And that was his name, and he behaved like that. He added a lot to others. Now, we can also. So that is the Yasef story. And his life principle was anybody sends an arrow, you turn it to a fruitful branch. It's meant to hurt you, but you turn it to a fruitful branch, which has a backing like this. Through all things, God works for good to them that love him and are called according to his purposes. Through all things, some things are bad, some things are pretty bad. But the arrow that was sent at you, Joseph had a mechanism, turn it around and made it good for himself and others. And that says his bow, he never used to shoot back at others. He kept his bow at stretch with God's season. Now, you remember the old time bow? There is a bendable, flexible pole. There is a cord, and you get your life season to shoot far, high, effective to target. That's how life goes. So this pole is the supply or your skill set. This cord is your training, and you eye it with God, and season to season, a harvest comes, arrow shot for your own harvest. So Joseph understood this. So if anybody turned this arrow and turned against others, rather than doing good for himself by shooting it into his destiny, Joseph said, I'll take it in God and turn it for good. So Yasef, God adds another fruit, even when people are making arrows, barbs, backbiting. This is the principle by which Joseph lived. So this final thing of point number 12, I ask you forgiveness for abdicating Sri Lanka for greener pastures. Those of you who are in other countries, say the same for your nation. Nations are meant to be a family in God's family of nations, and in each nation, there's a critical mass of momentum. So I'm using two physics terms, a mass and momentum. That is Newton's second law, mass and momentum. And these Lilliputians getting together in their each little nook, not necessarily a corner, each little skill set and relationship sphere. And we are creating a momentum with the Good Shepherd's help in the right direction. Mass momentum now is in the opposite direction. Rifts, bruises, say it as hard it is, all that goes on. But we believe we can change the tide. Thank you for listening. I need to get on to the vernacular now.